the first thing is obviously automation is key, right? It has huge potential to optimize cost and increase profitability, but it must be deployed in a proper way in a holistic strategy, right? A lot of organizations that we see, they're using kind of ad hoc test automation, right? So they have automation in place, which is great, but it's kind of like a band-aid approach, right? Where they're just kind of doing isolated use cases. They're not doing it all. There's testing done here. It's all over the place, right? It's not kind of in a whole combined holistic approach, right? A good strategy for that would be to, a combination of product and process, right? You can do the product part, that's great, but you also have to automate the process itself, right? And by process, I mean is the whole build deployment, right? Like the build needs to be built, you need to test it and deploy it all in one step, right? So all through your CI/CD pipeline, that needs to be automated, right? And based off of triggers, right? So that way you're basically once you've built, you're deploying code and it's getting tested all in one single step, right? And that's again it leads to quicker releases, right? If you're spending time to test it and then doing all the manual steps, it's going to slow things down, right? And this kind of process automation replaces all the manual efforts needed for this, right? And inefficiencies, right? And then what we're seeing is when you start getting to the point where you're automating your product and your process, you're seeing an increase in speed by 20x, right? And that's pretty big, right? That's a huge number that we're seeing, right? But again, it has to be a combination of both product and process. One other thing I'll add to that is there's also benefit of adding, automation in the early stages of the pipeline, right? Like if you start catching defects earlier on, it's gonna cost a lot less to fix them, right? That's much easier to do and much easier and a lot more impactful on cost when you do it earlier on, right?
Leaders are not necessarily thinking about testing as this gold mine of profitability, but it can have a huge impact on the business, not only on the product. And I think that's so important to remember here. Testing organizations should be positioning themselves as key drivers of EBITDA. They have a huge impact on the business. Again, not only on the product, but on the business's bottom line. I think about that. You pull that thread forward, right? Testing leaders should be advocating for themselves and claiming a seat at this table because they can provide positive impact to the bottom line. So for those folks that are involved in those C-levels and CTOs, you're having these conversations about EBITDA. When you're in those, advocate for the potential benefits around automated testing. If the executive team sees the value, they're more likely to invest in automation that further increases profitability. And automation really becomes then, if we look at it both at the corporate level and the product level, it really provides a multitude of benefits.